Hello, everybody. This is out of character for the show, but we need to settle on the bench for just a second to talk about the sponsor of today's show, Knack. Do you carry around a lot in your backpack like how LeBron James had to carry the Cleveland Cavaliers to 4 straight NBA Finals appearances? Does your messy and disorganized backpack make you want to pull a Bobby Knight and throw a chair across the room? Well, with Knack bags, you can look that frustration straight in the face and tell it, you're out of here!
Knack bags are a combination of your everyday backpack, a travel backpack, and a laptop bag. You have several pockets around the bag, plus a patent-pending hidden expandable carry-on bag that will help you keep everything you're carrying around organized. Pockets on pockets like Patrick Mahomes picks up passing yard after passing yard. Plus, the interior is as padded as a lineman, allowing you to keep all of your electronics safe and sound. The best part? You don't have to look like the student athlete that just came out of a 3-hour lecture class. No matter the need for your bag, Knack fits your lifestyle. Its look is sleek, organized, professional, and stylish, allowing you to look your best while you work your best.
And right now, if you head to knackbags.com for a limited time, use the promo code BENCH with your next order to get a free TSA-approved lock with purchase. Make sure to add the TSA lock to your cart with your Knack bag of choice and use the code BENCH at checkout to get it for free. Knack, the one-bag life. This is Empty the Bench with Tom Albano.
Baker Mayfield's reputation is in the shitter. His NFL career is in the shitter, and I think the Cleveland Browns are going to be in the shitter very soon with how their team is structured now.
Nick Morgeson. Rob finally waking up and saying, "Oh, the reputation of baseball is being dragged in the mud," like you said, Tom. We need to do something or else we're going to get even more thrown in the mud. And Nick Federa.
He could win a quarterback competition between Drew Lock and Geno Smith. Drew Lock and Geno, I got punched in the jaw and broke it because of an airline ticket. Smith.
Empty the Bench starts now. I won't say the word, but we could say Rob Manfred's done enough sucking of it already.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. You're welcome.
I mean, there's our first Rob Manfred moment. We could just stop right on that.
Hang on.
I doubt it.
Already. 30 seconds in, and we got a good old Rob Manfred, and that probably won't be the last.
Welcome to episode 133 of Empty the Bench, along with Tom Albano, Johnny Montalbano, Hank and Dichter, and myself, Nick Morgeson.
I was going to say, can we title this episode Game On Invades Empty the Bench?
We could, if you want to. But we have a lot to get to. I don't have my bag with me. But this episode is presented by Knack Bags as well. If you're looking for a great bag of quality, and Tom has it right there, make sure you go to knackbags.com, use the code BENCH, or use the code GAME, whichever one is your preference. Put the bag into your checkout, and also put the TSA lock in your checkout, and you'll get the TSA lock for free, $15 value for free. Okay, so we have a lot to get to. Obviously, Nick Federa is not here, so we chose the next best thing, and we brought on our other show on the network, Game On, to be with us. So
I was going to say, Nick must have a lot of power because it took 2 of us to fill in for him.
Yeah,
I guess so.
Right? But it's good to be aboard, guys.
Okay, so where are we going?
All right, so we begin today with we're actually going to stay like last week in the football, and that's because Johnny, you were here with us NFL Draft Night, and we were scratching our heads a little bit about one of the certain trades that happened, that being the acquisition of Hollywood Brown by the Arizona Cardinals. Some saying an overpay, some questioning why the Ravens would even do it in the first place, or why the Cardinals would even do it in the first place. Well, we have our answer for that last question. And that is because DeAndre Hopkins, who has been one of the best receivers in football for what? He entered the league 6-7 years ago?
Yeah.
Has been suspended for the first 6 games of the 2022 season for what is a PED violation. Now, DeAndre Hopkins has since argued that he is shocked and confused and has no understanding as to how he could have tested positive for PEDs.
Shocked and confused.
Yeah, and I was going to say an athlete shocked and confused that he failed a drug test.
What makes no sense, though. So he passed in October, and he passed in December, but it was positive in November. How does that make any sense?
I don't
Cycles?
know how
I don't know.
I don't know how the testing works, so I really couldn't answer that. But you're saying that so this was because of a test that he failed in November.
Yes, and
So how does it? So why does it come out now then that he gets suspended? That's hard.
yeah, but now this makes more sense because originally when we were doing the draft coverage and we saw this trade, we were all surprised when this trade came out for Hollywood Brown, and we're like, this trade makes no sense. And then we find out DeAndre Hopkins is suspended 6 games for PEDs.
Yeah.
So according to Hopkins brand manager Doug Sanders, he told Adam Schefter that a test in November returned, quote, trace elements of a banned substance. And Hopkins says he was confused, shocked. He says, I'm very mindful of what I put in my body. I've always taken a holistic approach. So I'm working with my team to investigate how this could have happened. But even as careful as I've been, clearly I wasn't careful enough. I apologize to Cardinal fans, my teammates, and the entire organization. I never want to let my team down. I fully intend to get to the bottom of this. As soon as I have more information, I will share it.
So is this A-Rod all over again?
I don't think so.
I think it's every athlete that tested positive for a drug that for a banned substance that comes out and says something similar like this.
So
of course, they're going to be in denial. They're going to think, "Oh, what could I have done?" But then they probably know deep down what they were doing was wrong, and they're like, "Oh, I got caught, really?" Oh.
I'm surprised we didn't get the protein shake excuse. That's usually what we get half the time.
So I think we are now going to have 2 really upset quarterbacks because as much as you can argue overpay for Marquise Brown, as much as Marquise Hollywood Brown is going to be a wide receiver 1 for the first 6 games of the season like he was over in Baltimore, I'm sorry, Brown's production is nowhere near close to what that Kyler to Hopkins combo was.
He's not a number 1. We know this already.
And I think that's going to be very damaging for the Cardinals very early on. And that's tough when in the NFC West.
Yeah, and I would say 2 things about this. You wonder more and more if you think that this trade was really more to please Kyler Murray. That could.
I think so. I think that because I said that on draft
real time. That's what I was thinking too. Was you're talking about Kyler Murray scrubbing all the Cardinal stuff off his Instagram, and then the talks about him they're rumoring to trade him or move on from him, and then this comes out. So you were wondering if this was something there. And then I thought the other angle to this that was interesting from the Hollywood Brown perspective is he went on a podcast or some show after he got dealt, and he was talking about how he wanted to get more touches and stuff with this move. But at the time, if you were trying to get more touches, why would you go to a situation where you already have a number 1 receiver?
It's not even just that. What about you're going to a place where the quarterback is using his feet and he's mobile? I mean, I should be careful with that because Lamar Jackson is the same way, but Kyler is even more mobile than Lamar is. He's not throwing the football.
And not just that, but you've also got James Conner, who looked to have been a little bit of a downgrade in Pittsburgh and then goes to a situation where he's the number 2, to chase Edmonds. And now James Conner, when Edmonds was out last season, was so good, one of the best, running backs that, was basically, under the radar and still made his way into the mainstream, that he is now going to be the number 1 running back because Chase Edmonds is now over in Miami.
Right. I mean, there's no winning in this situation. I mean, we said this on draft night. There was an NFL draft record in the first round, 9 trades. And there were some moves. We could even say the A.J. Brown move was probably the most shocking move of the first round. Who thought that the Titans were going to trade him to the Eagles? Now you have no weapons there. That's a whole different situation. We'll get to.
We're going to get to the Titans in just a second.
But that, I don't know. This trade now makes more sense. I feel like this was what was this last year when Aaron Rodgers was almost traded? Everyone was trying to put the pieces together to figure out if something was going to happen. This is the same thing. We had to put the pieces together after the story happened to figure out why this happened.
My only question is the same as you, Nick. How is this coming out now in May and not in November when it actually happened?
Well, could this be the same thing like as COVID, where they basically have to hide everything for violations and privacy issues, which I'm getting tired of, to be honest.
Hank, do you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with you guys. I was like all shocked. In a vacuum, it definitely seemed like it could have been a trade to, like try to appease the disgruntled Kyler Murray. Now, by the way, I don't know if I agree with you about the Lamar Jackson thing, because I think Kyler Murray has a better arm than Lamar personally, but that's just me. That's not the issue that we're talking about today. The whole thing is, I think, it's pretty much what it is. It's a move that really reeks out of desperation, and it can only really do so much to the Cardinals, but is it going to match the production of DeAndre Hopkins? Absolutely not. And keep in mind, looking back at the draft that Hollywood Brown came from, I thought he was taken over a lot of other much better receivers.
Overvalued.
That's another issue and tangent for another day.
Can we bring up one more issue as well? That Lamar Jackson was acting so far out of character on NFL draft nights on night one that why isn't anyone talking about that?
I've said that with Hollywood Brown gone and the Ravens going direction, I could see this being Lamar's last season in Baltimore.
Yeah, but unprofessionalism, you have to control yourself.
Yeah, that was a little much.
Well, here's my question. So now apparently Hollywood Brown had requested this trade, but did maybe Lamar, was he not in the know?
So are we going to go back to this whole argument again where because the quarterback is the franchise player that they have to be told everything? No, they don't. They get paid by the franchise. They don't have to be told. And this is in any sport, whether it's a quarterback.
I'm not trying to defend him, and I'm not trying to defend that, but I'm saying maybe, it caught him off guard, and now he's going to have to figure out, again, Rashad Bateman. I like Rashad Bateman, but again, I don't even think I think he's barely a wide receiver too.
Agreed, but this is Lamar's turning into Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, where he feels like he should be told everything, and if he's not told everything, he's going to have a temper tantrum over it.
Yeah, it's possible. The crazy thing is, this is a trade that you really look at, and right now, as we sit here in May, I don't think either team won the trade. Because the Ravens, I don't think, got better, and I don't necessarily know if the Cardinals got better. The Cardinals had a chance because you know what, they could have drafted a wide receiver with 23 and not have to pay Hollywood Brown all that money. That's a trend you're starting to see in football. Look at how many wide receivers got drafted, and you because you have 5 years of control over them versus now the wide receivers that are getting paid so much money. I think the A.J. Brown trade to the Eagles is a little different because I think that actually benefits the Eagles more. But I don't think this trade benefits either team. And I still think the Cardinals now, who have to make so many changes, and now without DeAndre Hopkins, take a major blow this season.
Yeah, and I think the Cardinals, we could have been the winner of this trade if it was the fact that Marquise Brown was going to be the wide receiver 2 and Hopkins was going to be the wide receiver 1. But the fact that Hopkins is going to be gone for 6 games, it's like maybe they'll be the winners on the long term. Definitely not in the short term. And on that note, by the way, about, potentially picking a wide receiver. So the Ravens, I'm looking at their draft picks. Let's see. Safety, center, outside linebacker, defensive tackle, offensive tackle already into round 4, cornerback, tight end, punter, tight end, cornerback, running back, Tyler Batty, round pick, pick 196. They had every opportunity to get pass catchers, and they got to be the tight ends are technically like 2s, but they also play,
they did themselves.
So they got 1. Yeah, that's to say. So if you're gonna again, I'm not trying to defend Lamar's unprofessionalism, but look what the Ravens are doing. They trade away their wide receiver 1, and they don't get anybody to fill it in with a draft pick.
I'll give you one more, and I was starting to talk about this to some of the guys here and others. So the NFL is going through a weird period of time where they don't want to pay anybody. If you notice, if you look at some of the guys that are being traded, A.J. Brown was traded and then paid by the Eagles. Hollywood Brown was traded by the Ravens, is probably going to get paid by the Cardinals. The NFL is going through a stretch where they don't want to give contract extensions. Now, it's different from, say, a sport like MLB than it is from the NFL. The NFL has a hard cap. MLB has more room. They could spend for days upon years. So it's a weird situation that's going on where NFL owners are putting the money in their pocket.
Yeah. I would pretty much tend to agree with that.
And part of that too is also from this draft because you had so many wide receivers go in the first round. And like I said, 5 years of control with them where you don't have to pay that max money, it does have something to do with it too. So it's a little bit of a transition in that regard.
I mean, you could say that about what was it? The Vikings when they brought in Jefferson when they got rid of Diggs. I mean, it's the same thing that they didn't want to pay Diggs. I mean, Diggs is doing fine right now in Buffalo. I don't think anyone's complaining in that situation.
Yeah, but I mean, now that Green Bay and Rodgers screwed themselves over, Justin Jefferson right now best receiver in the NFC North. So I'm sure the Vikings aren't complaining about losing Diggs either.
I mean,
just fine.
You'd also say the Packers with Devontae Adams because they had to overpay Aaron Rodgers.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah. The Rodgers thing they don't realize is how much it's actually hampered them and hurt them in long term.
That's why I said, and the cap is going to go up every year. I thought I read in the past month or so that the cap is actually about $10 to $15 million behind where it's supposed to be due to COVID and all the issues they had. Yeah. Just think about that for a second. In the next 4 to 5 years, you're going to probably see a $50 to $60 million jump in the cap.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you look at all the quarterbacks and how much money that they're making guaranteed and stuff. And Nick, you and I were talking about this on my show about what happens when the likes of Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow become free agents, how much money they get to command.
Forget it. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're going to
have Patrick Mahomes had to do it all over again. If he came out now, he'd be getting $50 to $60 million a year. It wouldn't be that crazy.
I'm going to tell you right now, I think one of those guys get over $500,000. I'll tell you that right now.
I mean,
I'm going to say one thing. I'll let you go, Johnny. Where do you think the first $1 billion athlete is good? Which sport do you think it's going to come out of?
Well, it's not going to be hockey, so it won't be that. Although it should be because hockey players, they're better athletes than any of the other sports. But it's not going to be them. It could be baseball, but I mean, it's probably going to be football. It's in some way, shape, or form. It's going to be football, but it may still be a few years down the road. But it'll probably be football.
I say NFL with an asterisk because remember something: the MLB has something that the NFL doesn't have. NFL has something that MLB doesn't have, and that's the ability to more non-guaranteed deals that eventually, hey, if you get cut, you lose all that. MLB, there's a lot more of, hey, once you sign that deal, you're screwed. Look at the MLB. Well, I mean, look at Trevor Bauer with the Dodgers. Had the cards not fallen in the correct way, the Dodgers could have been stuck on all that money, even when there wasn't anything there, in their fault.
I mean, I'll give you a situation where if you look at like the New York Giants in football, where they're stuck with all that money and they have to pretty much bite the bullet and sell off everything, all because they're in a cap league. And then if you look in other sports, you look at the Yankees who are being cheap, but they're spending what, like close to $140 million a year, and there's really no penalties as long as they just pay off to every other team. Like that's the difference we're talking about here.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to move on to some drama?
Yeah. Let's move on now. Let's talk about the Titans now. So Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans. Now the Tennessee Titans, of course, have been in the news lately that they trade away AJ Brown. And, of course, they released Julio Jones earlier in this offseason. So now their wide receiver combination is going to be on wide receiver number 1, Robert Woods. And then they have their first-round wide receiver draft pick, which was
Traylon Burks.
Traylon Burks, thank you.
That's right.
But now Ryan Tannehill has come out with some recent comments. 2 actually particular recent comments worth noting of. Firstly, that he was so devastated out from the Bengals loss.
I did a minute on
therapy. And then secondly, following up that comment by talking about another one of the Titans draft picks, Malik Willis, who was supposed to be, who was ranked number 1 on all of the quarterback draft boards, but still got taken second in terms of quarterbacks after Kenny Pickett was taken by the Steelers in the first round. So Malik Willis dropped quite a bit of a way after was being scheduled to be taken in the first round. And Tannehill saying that it's not his job to mentor Malik Willis. I don't know which comment you guys want to go after first.
Well, the one I would address first is the mental health situation, which is first of all, I give him credit. Let's go first with the positive. Most NFL athletes don't admit to anything. They don't admit to a drug situation. They don't admit to a mental health situation. They don't admit to abuse situations. We usually find out about these afterwards. So for him to actually come out and be a man for a change and admit that he had a mental health situation, I'll give him that as a positive.
Yeah.
So let's address that.
I actually find it funny you say that he was a man when he was talking about mental health. No, because there's a stigma that being a man is actually having to suck up and basically not admitting this kind of stuff.
No, I give him more credit for actually coming out.
Yeah.
Listen, as someone who's dealt with mental health stuff, I side with Nick on that one.
Yeah, I did too. I've had many. I'm sure we've all had mental health issues at some point. Like,
absolutely, 100%.
Yes.
Whether we admit them or not is a whole different issue. But like, we've all dealt with them. So I give him credit on this front for actually admitting that he had a mental health issue. Now, I don't know how much of it I 100% believe of what he's saying, that he couldn't sleep after losing a game in the divisional round and all that stuff. But seeking therapy, most athletes won't do that.
Yeah.
True.
Well, at the end of the day, we're all human, right? So you do have to look at it that way. But yeah, I mean, I do give him credit for coming out and saying that, because at the end of the day, all these guys are human, and we have to understand that.
And you know what? And then they have the other issue where the quote that's up here, it says, "It's not my job to mentor Malik Willis." Now, there's two ways to look at this. Okay, one is people are getting mad. It's all over the news. It's all over the trending topics that he basically said, "Well, I'm not helping him. He's my competition," and blah blah. Okay, and then there's the other part of this where he's like, "All right, I got to figure this out. Maybe I can help him." So I don't know. I think people are overreacting a little bit.
I mean, in one end, on one spectrum, that's his competition. On the other spectrum, that's also his teammate.
Right.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I honestly see both sides. I think people are blowing this probably more out of proportion than it needs to be, because let's put yourself into somebody in the real world. Like, everywhere you are in a real life job, there's often somebody that can be very much a threat to you and take your job. And we all know this as people who create comment, in show business, that's true as well. So of course he's going to feel this guy's my competition. But at the same time, he is his teammate. So if he's going to be a good teammate, you do want to see him be supportive. But you know what? At the same time, again, it's being blown out of proportion.
Now, I think part of it also has to be whatever the direction the Titans are going to go in. Because right now, they just pretty much decimated. Now, I really love Robert Woods. I like Burks, but you can't debate that they have decimated wide receiver position. And Derrick Henry, what happens if he goes down? So maybe it's more a matter of, are we trying to move on from Ryan Tannehill? Not that he's a Met or back, but it seems like, what is the direction of the Titans? If they're not going to be as competitive, maybe it's just a matter of trying to get younger. Now, Malik Willis and this quarterback draft class, I mean, we've talked about it enough, even in the lead up to the draft, that this is not a strong class. I don't see anybody, Pickett or Willis, making any big impact. So for that reason, maybe Tannehill's job is safe, and he really has nothing to worry about.
The quarterback class was abysmal, and that's me being nice looking at it, that there was not one single person. If you look at over the past 5 or 6 years, we always heard, even before the draft, months before the draft, that a quarterback was the star, the next one that was going to lead the quarterback class. Not just the NFL draft class, but the quarterback class. There was not one name. People were saying Pickett was that one guy, but Willis, but they all dropped. So
yeah, I think that they were just trying to make something out of that.
And I feel bad for Willis, because I feel like there were teams, there were other teams that needed a quarterback more desperately, like Carolina, who eventually did get Matt Corral.
Yeah, and I think Matt Corral's stock would have actually gone higher if he didn't hurt himself in the bowl game. That's part of why his stock went down a bit. But yeah, I think you know what Nick was right there. I think the reason why is they're trying to create something out of it. Kenny Pickett, the real thing with him was the fact that he went to Pittsburgh and then that's the Steelers drafted him. That was really the cool thing there. It's really you have to look to next year. They're talking about a very deep quarterback class, so we have to look to next year. But the thing about Tannehill I want to get to for 1 second is isn't his contract though is pretty large? Didn't they give him an extension just recently? So that might be something to do too. And I think the Titans might be banking a little bit too much on Derrick Henry going into next season.
Especially after a season where Derrick Henry was banged up for quite a bit.
Well, that's the thing. They're bank. I think they're going to bank on Derrick Henry from 2 years ago, and we saw them try and do that last year, and that really affected them because they really don't have a backup guy in that regard, and that ends up forcing Tannehill to become a real throwing quarterback. And if you have a Derrick Henry, it takes the pressure off Tannehill. And that was, I think, part of the problem with him in that playoff game against the Bengals is he had to throw so much, and he ended up throwing those 3 picks.
I have Tannehill's contract, by the way.
Yeah, I have it
contract.
too. Yeah.
So it's it's up by 2024 when he's 38, but after
he's got an
season,
opt. He's got an opt after 23. Yeah. So he's in the middle of a 4-year, $118 million contract. He has an opt after 23. He's going to make 29 this year. And he's going to make 27 next year.
Yeah, there's no chance in the world he's going to be opting out. I'll tell you that.
Well, I was going to say, maybe, I don't know. It's funny because it's like if he has, if he has AJ Brown and Julio Jones still, maybe they still perform to the level that, Tannehill does opt out. Maybe they have Malik Willis just in case he still does. But the fact that he has a downgrade in wide receiver kind of actually serves maybe a little positive of a purpose that Tannehill is not going to opt out of his deal.
Well, right.
He's not going to get the same numbers.
Because he's on the cap for so much money. And forget the regular cap. What about the dead cap that this contract is going to cause?
Well, that's the other thing you have to look at too. A lot of these quarterbacks create a lot of dead cap situation, and that's once again why you have to go back to Tom Brady and his contract situation. Why his teams could be so successful is he doesn't take a lot of money.
I'll tell you right now, they're not getting rid of him this year. His dead cap number, Tannehill's numbers, dead cap is $57.4 million this year.
Yeah, no way.
he's not going anywhere.
Not a chance.
And for a guy whose success is based off a system that may not be there much longer. I mean, it's tight. I'll tell you, the Titans are going to be in a world of hurt real soon.
Absolutely.
They played themselves.
Yeah,
they played themselves.
Sometimes you have to look at the quarterback and realize what his success came out of. I look at it as a local perspective, and Nick, I think you could agree with me on this. Mark Sanchez, when he was back with the Jets, and I don't want to go back 12 years, but his success was based off a power running game, and they did away with that and brought in wide receivers and made him a quarterback that he wasn't, and that was part of the reason why his downfall.
Where do you think the ground and pound came from? It came from Rex.
Yeah, and then Rex and the Jets changed the way they were, and that ruined Sanchez.
Because they're not a throwing team. They've never been a throwing team.
Yeah, except then you bring in multiple wide receivers, and that forced him to be a guy. But yeah.
Well, now you kind of have to be a throwing team because this day and age, the NFL is a quarterback's game. Sorry to say.
They look at that. They look at yardage and stuff. Absolutely.
That's why I'm pissed off that they had a deal for Debo and they didn't do it.
Yeah. But I still think
he's still a question of this offseason. He's still a question right now.
Well, apparently he's back in the good graces because he followed the 49ers on Instagram again. So I guess we can all be happy.
Hey. And apparently Trey Lance is falling out of favor with the 49ers.
That's another thing, yeah.
What is that team? All right.
I thought they were really building something well there. I guess, I don't know.
All right. Speaking of San Francisco, well, former San Francisco, let's talk about let's get a little fire to the show going.
Madison Bumgarner. I'm going to stop you for a second. You're welcome.
Oh, here we go.
So the good old Rob Manfred train has left the station.
Oh, did somebody say good old Rob Manfred? There
it is.
Yeah. So this story comes out, and we're watching Madison Bumgarner pitching. This was after an inning, right? That he essentially got ejected.
Yeah, first inning.
Are you having fun over there?
I'm chucking my hand, and I'm refusing to look at whatever's in front of me.
Well, yeah. So Dan Bellino, and we shouldn't know these umpires' names. I'm sorry. We should not know these umpires' names. Checks his hand after, I think it was after the third out. He was should have struck out a batter like 2 pitches sooner. And like he's just like literally, he's feeling the hand. It's like a hand massage, not a hand check at that point. And he's just like, and he's just looking at him. Just like looking at him. Like it was the strangest, creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then I think Bumgarner wanted to like strangle the heck out of him too.
Oh, yeah.
Bumgarner is a guy you never, ever, ever want to piss off. Just ask Yasiel Puig.
That's a good one.
Well,
I forgot about that. Yeah.
See, this is where I go, and I was reacting in live time when this happened this week. This is where you do go on Manfred, because what's with all these checks because they're worried about people cheating. I'm like,
that's what he created.
This is on Manfred. This situation is Manfred's fault because he reacted or overreacted to the spider tack situation, and all these pitchers have, when they come off the mound, have to get checked possibly for using a substance, and it's just ridiculous. And because you know what it is, and I hate to say it, this is one of like 10,000 problems with baseball. If you get rid of this thing, players are gonna find other ways to try and cheat and beat the system. So that is why. And when they were talking about the other pitcher who was pitching in this game, who I can't think of off the top of my head, he had a very simple check and he came off. But the thing with Bumgarner lasted a couple of minutes, and that's why he got mad. Now, the only thing that would have made the story, that would have made it better maybe, would have been if the umpire was Joe West or Angel Hernandez.
Oh,
we all know Bumgarner's history with Joe West, and then we all know Angel Hernandez's history with everything in baseball.
Well, Joe West is retired, so it couldn't have been him.
I know, but I just think of if you remember in San Diego when
the stare down. The stare
down after a swear word.
And Angel Hernandez is just a joke. I'm sorry.
Well, we know that from Sunday Night Baseball. Well, from a million things, but most recently Sunday Night Baseball a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but the problem is Angel Hernandez is too worried about race and all that situation rather than his job on the field.
But this just comes back to the situation with one of the many things that Manfred created with the whole, spider tack and being reactive and not proactive, and that everybody's got to get checked when they come off the mound, which is just absolutely a joke.
The one credit I give Bellino is he actually has since regretted his actions. He released a statement just the other day. I would like to address my actions on May 4th involving Madison Bumgarner. When I began my MLB career almost 15 years ago, I received some good advice. I was told to umpire every game as if my children were sitting in the front row. I fell short of those expectations this week. I can't go back and change what happened. I take full accountability. I will learn from this incident, and I sincerely apologize.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I can actually break this sound effect out for the first time in a while because I haven't used it in a while. But this is what I was thinking.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God. Stop fucking lying.
You think he's lying?
Of course he's lying. Are you serious? He got caught. Look at every umpire here who gets caught. When Angel Hernandez gets caught, it's once Major League Baseball comes down and drops the hammer on his ass that he finally apologizes. It's the same thing. He wouldn't have apologized if Major League Baseball said nothing to him behind closed doors.
Well, yeah, aren't they all trying to save face?
Huh?
Aren't they all pretty much trying to save face with those apologies?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because they get reviewed after all their games. You remember? Well, actually, do they still have that grading system in place for the umpires, or no?
I don't know.
Or that was the strike zone thing? What the hell was the name of that grading system that they used to use at the stadiums?
I don't
know.
I don't recall. But you know what it is. I mean, here it is. We sit here. We're talking about another thing. This is the stuff we talk about with baseball. Not like the games that are happening. It's all these things that continue to happen. And this is on Manfred again.
Of course, it's on Manfred.
Yes, it is.
Yes, this is on Manfred.
Oh, by the way, are you talking about the automated strike zone, like comparing the umpires' calls with the automated strike zone?
Yeah, and then they would give them a grade after each game.
I would say I don't know anything specific, but I know there is them in place like that.
But this is all good old Rob Manfred to a T. It's just literally just this is Rob Manfred taking a dump on the field before a game and saying, "I'm just going to leave this here, and when someone picks it up after me, then we'll continue to have a conversation."
It's just, he's trying to create these things that, like, we're trying to prevent cheating from happening, and that, we're trying to, and then he tries to find things that we're trying to speed up the game, and which is not actually happening.
Let's be real for a second. Rob Manfred's not preventing anything. Okay? He's not preventing anything.
Let's be honest with ourselves. All these attempts to try and, speed a game up or try to... Baseball is a thinking man's game. I'm sorry. I saw an argument. Baseball is a thinking man's game. If you're trying to speed up the process, and you're trying to have all these different forms of entertainment, and you're throwing men on second base in extra innings that are absolutely unearned. Who are you trying to win over because you're pissing off everybody?
Fooling?
Or Tommy, you know what it is? It's the things. I hate to say this, but I think the pitch clock, which is going to come into effect next year, is actually going to work because it's working in the minor leagues.
Okay,
but the things that he's doing to speed up the game now it's just nonsense. Whether it's the three-batter minimum,
one good innovation. That's one good innovation compared to how many that don't work.
Yeah, I mean, you know my thoughts about the 3-batter minimum with the pitchers. I think that's garbage. The limits to the mound visit limits. I mean, that's not the answer.
That's not baseball either. That's not what the natural game is. You go out when you need to go out as a pitching coach because sometimes you have to. You need a scouting report. Sometimes you need a breather on the mound. Sometimes. So it happens. If you like baseball, you watch baseball. Games are going to be long. Forget it. If they think that an average game is long, what about a Yankee Red Sox game?
Oh, and by the way, I find it kind of hypocritical because, NFL has all this downtime and people love it.
Well, by the way, just because an off note, it was called Quest Tech. That was the name of the grading system.
That's it. I was trying to remember what it was. I knew it started with Q.
And that was that weird grading system where, like, you would see some umpires get an F for the whole day because their strike zone was so far out of right field, like it didn't even work, but they still had jobs.
Yeah. Hang on. If we're going to go all out with trying to make baseball fun, how about a league where we have aluminum bats? How about a league where we can have trampolines in the outfield where we can jump up and basically make some Spider-Man-like catches? I wonder if there's going to be a league like that soon. I think...
Well, when's the CBA up again? It might be real soon. We might be having to relive this again.
Oh no! Please don't jinx that. Why would you jinx that?
What do you mean?
No, I'm saying now it's going to happen.
Oh, now we're going to have a lockout. Now we're going to have a longer lockout.
Hey, speaking of lockout, I guess that means something else.
I feel like it would have been more appropriate to have this screen off.
Please start up the Excel.
Yes, please. All right.
It is a giant circus.
Let's go to something a little more heartwarming. Let's go to something a little more.
Wait, that exists?
On the positive side in baseball, yes.
It exists.
This clip, oh my God, is something else. So you all have probably seen it around social media right now. Yankee Blue Jay game at the Rogers Center. Aaron Judge hits one into the bleachers. A Blue Jays fan grabs it, gives it to a Yankee fan.
Yankee fan.
A young one. I was going to say probably not more than, 7, 8?
I think he's 8 years old. I think he was 8 or 9 years old. Yeah.
8 or 9 years old. Boy just bursts into tears and hugs the fan.
Wait, that means that we can actually have emotional and positive moments in baseball?
Who knew?
And then the Blue Jays fan, the boy who was crying that received the baseball, like the boy's brother, like all got to meet like Aaron Judge the next day.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We just become best friends. Yep.
I mean, Yankee fans and Blue Jays fans becoming best friends?
And it was just a couple of weeks ago where Yankee fans were in the shitter for what happened with the Guardians and Miles Straw.
Wow. I mean, like, I didn't think Yankee fans and Blue Jays fans could actually coexist.
Oh,
Well, you know what? Every baseball fan has more of a degree of heart to them and a love for the game than Rob Manfred himself.
Well, now you're just talking crazy talk.
I mean, remember, let's see, we have a commissioner who at one point called the MLB World Series trophy worthless. So,
Well, he called it a piece of tin,
piece
Piece
of
of
metal.
tin.
Yeah,
piece of metal, piece of tin.
Yeah, yeah.
Same difference. But yes, I don't know. Can we just storm Rob Manfred's office and just like, can we just have a bunch of pitchforks and just start a riot in front of his offices in New York at this point?
It's going to be worthless. Speaking of worthless, wait, guys, hold on. I have some breaking news.
You do?
Yes. So, in Cincinnati, the Reds put up 7 runs in the bottom of the 8th and are 2 outs away from getting their 4th win of the season. They've done it.
Stop
They've
the
won
presses!
I know it's still 3:22 right now. By the end of this episode, it's going to be 4:22. I'll
Hey,
just give them the win right now.
Not so fast. You saw what the Phillies did the other night against the Mets. Everybody, including their own announcer, John Kruk, was saying this game's over, and it was 7-1 going in the ninth, and we all know what happened there.
Since you brought that up for a second, can we?
Well, currently, there's 1 out in the top of the 9th inning, as there's a drive into deep left field by Castellanos.
I was waiting for that.
4-0 ball game. I don't know if we'll ever put on this headset again.
Can we just, since we're talking about the Mets, and I'm getting tired of this on social media, and Steve Cohen, who keeps going on and off of Twitter, can someone tell him like that he doesn't know how to use Twitter correctly, first of all? And two, wow, our team is doing well. All right, can we, hey, Steve, stop jinxing yourself. You're going to make it worse.
All right, second out. They're an out away from becoming 4-22. But, I mean, the Mets and Yankees right now at the top of the
Who knew?
baseball. Yeah, who knew? But I mean, it's still May. The Mets, I mean, they collapsed last August to eventually miss the playoffs. And Yankees, I mean, they're gonna have a tough go when they have to do 23 games in 22 days. Now, May is gonna be a test for these two teams.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom, but I feel like, and I've said, and Hank and I were talking about this on our show this week. This feels different, though. You know what? I'll start with the Mets here. The biggest difference so far to me is the manager. You have a legitimate manager now in Buck Showalter. You don't have a first or second year manager or anybody along those lines. You've got your 4 or 5 starting pitchers deep that can give you a great start. I mean, you very rarely have had a poor start from the rotation. I mean, maybe Taijuan Walker just the other day when they came back and won. And look what you've had so far in the first 25 games. You've had multiple 9th inning comebacks. You've had a combined no-hitter, which was amazing, no pun intended. You're having bounce back years so far from Lindor, McNeil. You've got guys that can, play in different spots. I mean, it feels different. And you know what? These are different Mets because when they had the option, they designated Robinson Cano for assignment. Let's be honest, if this was the Fred Wilpon Mets, Cano would still be on this team somewhere.
Well, because he wouldn't have been willing to eat the money.
Yeah, and that's where you got to give Steve Cohen.
That's the thing.
Gotta be fair. Steve Cohen, I mean, some of the decisions that he's made so far this year and the organization itself, now, yeah, they're going to have a reality check at some point. They probably will, just like the Yankees. But, I mean, this feels different because first and foremost, you've got a legitimate, capable manager.
And
actually, Nick, let's go back to the unspoken podcast days after Girardi was dismissed by the Yankees. Did I not argue about Buck at one point?
Yeah, you did. And I have no problem with Buck. I still think Buck is a little bit old-fashioned for today's managerial game because you can't do certain things today. If you look at most teams, including the Yankees, which is all controlled by
the general managers.
Well, it's all controlled by statistics. And basically, or sabermetrics, however you want to put it. And
the dreaded A word?
That too. Analytics. Well, you could save the dreaded A word for Rob Manfred, but that's a whole different. But I was going to say.
Rob Manfred is a different A word. Thank you very much.
That was like last week when I said that Rob was a different C word, but we won't. We won't come back. We won't come back to that one either. But
too late, you already did.
Well, it was in the intro, so if you're 45 minutes in now and you're listening,
go back there.
But I don't know. I just think people are a little over the top. Like both teams, New York teams. First of all, both New York teams being at the top of the league is good for baseball. It's great for baseball because they get all the attention. But as soon as they come crashing back down to earth, like all teams do, then it becomes a whole different story and a different narrative.
And the parade gets canceled.
The parade gets canceled.
That too.
Nick,
Well, no, it's true. Like if you're in New York, you're either going to hear people planning for a ticker tape parade already, or people acting like the sky is falling. There's never an in between.
Apparently, there's now a little bit of a delay. It's a 2-2 count. They're one strike away, but there's a little bit of a delay because Tyler Stevenson just got hit with a foul ball.
Oh no!
Don't put him back on the
more injuries.
But Nick, let me just piggyback what you said about Buck being old-fashioned. I actually think that also benefits the Mets too, because there have been moments during some of their games this year where they've actually, the analytics, or I brought up that word. Yes, I'll bring it up. Would tell you to pinch hit for a right-hander that they had with a lefty, or pinch hit a right-hander against a left-handed pitcher, and Buck hasn't done that. So
no, I agree with you. So, I agree with you. I think that baseball should be managed from a natural sense, not an analytical sense, because we've seen. Look at the way pitchers are controlled. Now, forget the lockout for a second. I'm talking about in general. We're seeing that they're saying like one time through the order, two times through the order, and after two times through the order, a pitcher can't physically make it through. By the book, they can't pitch.
Oh, that's the new thing. It's not even pitch count anymore. It's the fact they don't want these guys facing them third time through the lineup. I think that's ridiculous.
Because God forbid, like they're going to find out where you're throwing the exact pitch in that same day.
Exactly. But no, I mean, it feels different with the Mets. And then as far as the Yankees go, in my opinion, I think the thing that now Tom's right. They've been postponed 2 games in a row, and they're going to be playing 23 games in the next 22 days, which is going to be a great test. But I think when you look at their roster right now, you have 10 guys that could slot in for 9 spots, and you can rotate the DH around. And I think they're going to especially need to do that these next 22 or these next 23 games. And they have the ability to do that. And they've been very fortunate, just like the Mets so far, and that they've been very, very healthy. I mean, this is a team that's been decimated by injuries for the last several years. And the fact that, you've had everybody pretty much available to start. I mean, the only guy really in the lineup that's been out has been their supposed starting catcher, Royvert. So it's been good, and we'll see if it can continue. I think the Yankees are a very streaky team.
Reds watch over. Reds have won. They are 4-22.
4-22. Oh, amazing.
Pirates Twitter is going absolutely nuts.
Of course they are.
I'm sure it is.
Wait a minute. The Reds are going to be that team this year that no one wants to lose to. It's just going to be that way. And when a team loses a game, they're just going to be like,
I believe it's my turn to play a sound effect since the Reds won.
Is it?
Oh, that's great.
Let's get the trophy. Congratulations. You won a baseball game.
Wait a minute. Did someone say congratulations?
Congratulations, dickweeds.
Oh, man. But
Nick is in spirit.
Nick had to make a presence somewhere. He said, you can't get rid of me entirely. But no, I think the New York scene, though, does look right now pretty favorable as we hit May.
Yeah, but let's talk about the Cincinnati scene. Good grief.
Yeah, well,
Charlie Brown.
You almost had to expect this, though, with all the moves that they've made. With the Winker and Suarez trade to Seattle. They've actually also dealt with a lot of injuries. Their pitching is atrocious. I mean,
Castellanos getting moved to Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, losing Nick Castellanos to the Phillies. Absolutely. There's another thing. And they've also been banged up, too, offensively. I mean, Jonathan India, the rookie of the year, he's been out.
Stevenson had been on the concussion IL.
Yeah.
If you talk about the pitching, Hunter Green, who's actually their top prospect, I'm sorry, he should not be pitching at an MLB level right now.
Yeah. I mean,
they're desperate.
Yeah. I mean, I was sharing that stat with you guys before the show started. They're pitching to an ERA of almost 7.
2 full runs more than
the Washington Nationals, almost 2 full runs.
Wait a minute. That other stat you said was funny also. If they pitched 35 straight scoreless innings, it wouldn't make a dent.
Yeah, Joel Sherman had tweeted that out yesterday, that if the Nationals starters had pitched 35 straight scoreless innings, they'd still be among the worst in baseball. It's It's rough there, that's for sure. And I know you, Nick. You were talking about the debate about are the Reds tanking or not. And look, I've said this to you guys in baseball. I don't believe there's any such thing as tanking. If you're bad, you're bad. I mean, the Reds pitchers are pitching to a 7 ERA. That's not tanking.
Well, let me
That's
give some
bad.
full context here, Johnny. So in our pre-show
go ahead.
meeting, Nick had been in an absolute war of an argument. Nick Federa saying that the Reds are tanking. Nick Morgeson saying, like Johnny, that there's no such thing as tanking in baseball. Nick Federa actually got a little bit of credit from an ESPN personality who actually is usually very good with these takes, in Jeff Passan, saying that the Red situation right at this point is tanking at its absolute ugliest. And actually, if they are tanking, Jeff Passan points out, it's kind of pointless. Now that we have that new lottery system in place because of that little certain CBA that actually got agreed to late, which still gave us 162 games, the Reds only have a 16.5% chance at you have to tweet. I'm talking about the next tweet afterwards.
No, but it's down there. But this one is important. So this was before they won today. The Cincinnati Reds are now 3-22. They've scored an NL worst 79 runs. If they doubled that, it would still be fewer runs than they've allowed. I mean, come on, man.
Well, here's the thing. It's 16.5% chance of getting the first pick in 2023. And teams can't receive lottery picks in 3 straight seasons. So if they don't try to win by 2025, the earliest it picks is 7th. Now, I told you guys right before the show came on the air my thoughts on everything. And that's because they're not tanking the traditional sense. They're tanking in the sense of keeping the money, kind of like what we say all the time, what we joke all the time about the Rays. But the Rays have something, and the Marlins have something that the Reds don't have. A good scouting department and a farm system. I have the MLB farm system rankings for 2022 up here. Number 1, you have the Orioles. Then you have the Mariners. And then the Rays. Then the Diamondbacks. Then the Dodgers and Marlins. You have even the Pirates, who they defeated today. Number 7. At number 10 is Detroit. Another team that we kind of have jokes about. And actually, the Reds right now, worst team in baseball since the 2003 Detroit Tigers, which was an infamously bad organization.
By the way, do you notice a trend that all the teams that are at the top, except for Detroit, are all small market teams that have gone nowhere in like the past decade and literally are looking to try to build.
But then, Nick, look at 11 through 15. 11, the Giants. 12, the Guardians. The Yankees, 13. The Red Sox 14, and then you finally get to the Reds.
Right, but my point, well, that's bad. But my point is, if you look at the top 10 teams, they're all teams that are abysmal, and that's where they should be. They should have a top-ranked farm system. But the Reds being at 15, that's a disgrace.
So what is this team? I always joke that the Yankees are an identity crisis. The Reds, I don't even know if the Reds even know who they are.
You want to know who the Reds are?
Look at all the failure.
That's the Reds. Failure. That's what they are.
And I'm sorry, you take that second pass and tweet into consideration, both the first and the second. This could be a team that's in the basement for the rest of this decade.
But wait a minute, who is passing to defend the Reds? Because that's what that tweet felt like to me.
Defend the Reds?
Yes.
Speaking of the Reds, by the way, do you guys remember that interview that Castellini, the owner, gave not too long ago? I'm sorry, we need to get into this because that was a whole special kind of stupid that you wouldn't even hear from the Bob Nuttings of the world. That's how bad it was.
It was bad. It was really bad.
Well, where are you going to go? Let's start there. I mean, sell the team to who? I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you want to
wait. Didn't he come out and apologize for that afterwards too?
He did. I was going to keep reading it. If you want to look at what you would have this team do to make it more profitable, make more money, compete more in the system, in the game that exists, it would be to pick it up and move it somewhere else. And so be careful what you ask for.
Who is he? Patrick Starr?
What kind of owner says that?
We should take Bikini Bottom and move it somewhere else.
we should take Bikini Bottom and move it somewhere else.
And fans who were frustrated, he would say, "Oh, compete more, make more money."
Hey,
No,
Phil.
this is what
before the show.
Your team.
Can you say what you said before the show about ownership and the fans?
What?
Well,
About a certain person who's about to become the new Twitter CEO?
oh,
Oh,
yeah, they want Elon Musk to own
That they want Elon Musk over this guy.
Oh man.
All I could say is
in perspective. Let me put this in perspective for you guys. They want somebody who's a billionaire who owns Twitter just because he's a fancy name. But what they don't realize is that he is from South Africa and probably does not know a single thing about baseball, and probably in hindsight isn't really that much more qualified, maybe even marginally more qualified to own a team than the Cats to lead.
Wait, can I throw in a question out there then? Would Elon Musk be even a little more qualified to be the commissioner of baseball than Rob Manfred?
Marginally. Marginally.
That's a tough one.
Marginally. That's at best.
I don't know.
think what Elon Musk could do better probably than Rob Manfred would be to promote the game. That would be a start. So if you want to promote the game, then yeah, he would be better at that than
If he can get a proper partnership between baseball and Twitter, then I would automatically say he's better.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
All right, let's talk about some NHL playoffs.
Yeah.
And I still have a bone to pick about Game 1. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, guys, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go up to every person in the world, and I'm going to shove them into something, and then I'm going to say their injury is their fault. That's what the referees just did. You tell me that. Tell me that. That's not what the referees essentially did. Oh, you shoved the Rangers player into your own goaltender. It's the Ranger person's fault.
Yeah, that is just, we've seen this actually happen a few times, and it was crazy because they were doing a side by side. Hank, I think it was in the Stanley Cup Finals when the Rangers were taking on the Kings, and there was an incident.
Oh no, Johnny, I already know what you're going to mention. I'm getting PTSD.
But
Johnny, don't.
You know where I'm going with that, though, right?
I know exactly where
this
you're going
call
with
is one of the most inconsistent calls, not only in hockey but in all of sports. It's like, it's any sort of like interference call. I mean, it's like with football. What is pass interference? We've seen that out in hockey. What is goaltender interference or interference
Wait a minute.
in general?
So you're basically saying you want interpretation to rules.
Well, I would like interpretation and example, yeah.
Interpretation to rules is like MLB and MLBPA trying to sit down and have a civil conversation.
Well,
It doesn't exist.
I think there's a better chance, though, than that. But I get that. But look, you know what? At the same time, the Rangers overcame that and won Game 2 on Thursday. And now they go for Game 3 tonight. And, when we were previewing this series, I think the biggest advantage to me that the Rangers had was goaltending, and it still is.
Yep.
Because now you look at the Penguins situation. I mean, they're down to their third and fourth string goaltenders right now. So
I mean, for the Rangers, they got to take at least one in Pittsburgh,
Well,
if not both.
There's a lot of guys on the Penguins that are injured. Zucker, Dumoulin, for example.
yeah.
They have to take advantage tonight. Like
They got to take advantage. They got to take.
But you got to take advantage. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. They got to take advantage. Like, obviously, they need to get one in Pittsburgh, but I would even go as far as to say they should take advantage and make this as quick a series as possible. If you can win it in 5, don't stretch it out. Win it in 5. Get that 5th grade empty garden.
I agree, and I said before the series that the Rangers were going to win in 5. It might be 6 now, but I still think they're still going to win it. I mean,
absolutely. And hey, maybe if you're lucky, you get Barclay Goodrow back a little bit sooner for the next round.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it was a good bounce back though on Thursday. I mean, that's Hank and I have been talking about this. The Rangers do bounce back. I mean, they have 20 wins this year following a loss, so they don't.
I actually sent you the tweet that gave you the record for wins after. A loss.
And so what is it? It's like 28-3 following a loss this year. So the Rangers, one thing they don't have is they don't have extended long losing streaks, and that I think speaks volumes to Gerard Gallant. It's a trend that some New York teams have, and now with new administrations and new coaches and managers, that it gives them life and helps propel them. So, look, this is a team that has definitely exceeded expectation. They're way ahead of schedule, but you also like to take advantage of that right now because you never know if they're back in this spot again. But I still do like the Rangers' chances here, and I think the series will go 5 or 6. I originally had Rangers in 5. I still have them going that, but I mean, right now, you kind of feel bad for Pittsburgh because of their goaltending situation, but at the same time, that's the
As
reality.
Rangers fans, yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, look, you do feel kind of bad, but at the same time, I don't feel bad because it's all that can happen. So
let me ask you this:
you got to take advantage,
Johnny. Let me ask you this though: if our roles were reversed, do you think they would feel a lick?
No,
not
at
a
all.
chance. Look, Hank, you and I have spoken about this too.
Yep.
Look, Sid is still doing Sid things. Evgeny Malkin's still doing Malkin things. They've still got Gensel. I mean, the big guys and Letang, the big guys that are still on this team are still producing. Pittsburgh's this team that's made the playoffs 16 consecutive seasons is still piecing this together. So you've got to take advantage and go for it now.
My one question is though, and I don't profess to be a hockey guy by any means,
That's
but
why we're here.
I would ask though, would the Penguins be like the Patriots of the NFL, where they get a lot of the calls, like we saw it the other night with the goalie interference? Is that who they are? Is that how the league treats them?
Oh, are you going that direction? Yeah. I guess still that.
So then you would probably say that Sidney Crosby would be like Tom Brady then.
Probably.
In a sense, yeah.
I can see the point. Yeah, it's definitely possible. It's definitely up there.
Well, the difference between them and the Patriots is at least the Penguins had championships before Sidney Crosby came along, and
that's true too.
Also,
Mario Lemieux and company.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sidney's not even the greatest player in his own franchise history.
I gotta say, just looking at the rest of the field, well, what a weird series between the Maple Leafs and Lightning. We go 5-0 Leafs, then 5-3 Lightning, and then 5-2 Toronto. That's such a weird series.
Yeah, that one is definitely is definitely strange.
It's also a little shocking just seeing the Lightning just not. They don't look like themselves like they were in the last 2 playoffs. I know the Leafs have a history of joking and haven't gone out of the first round in 30 years, but still.
We also have to remember the Lightning have lost a lot of their guys from the previous 2 Cup winners. I mean, what the NHL is. It has one of the most unforgiving, the most unforgiving salary cap in all of sports. So you knew that run probably wasn't going to last forever. And not to mention, that's the thing about salary cap. It makes it really hard for you to really keep your guys together. And now they're not quite as deep as they were like a year or 2 ago.
You also got to mention Florida, Washington. I mean, game 2, 5-1 Florida, and then 6-1 Washington. And Washington finds themselves up 2-1. Florida, I mean, I really hope this is not the end for them after an absolute strong, season where they won the President's Trophy, didn't they?
Yeah, that's got to be the most talented, by far the most talented team in Florida.
If they fall out very quickly, I mean, 1, that's an absolute disappointment. And then 2, the Avalanche would have to be the favorite to take home the Cup this year.
I already had the Avalanche winning the Cup to begin with, though, to be honest.
I'll tell you, though, not just because I live down here, but watch for the Carolina Hurricanes. They are really good.
Yes.
I mean, that series, they were putting on a clinic against the Bruins. I know Boston won game 3, but Carolina is really good. I would love for it to be a Hurricane Rangers series. I mean, that would be epic.
Well, I've already said whoever wins that Hurricanes-Bruins series is probably going to give the Rangers a little bit of trouble because they've struggled against both teams during the season.
Agree. Yep.
Well,
I was in Boston to see it.
Yeah, and real quick, I would not be surprised, and if we were on before the playoffs started, I would have told you to watch for the Capitals to upset the Panthers. I really do. I know Tom Wilson's hurt, but I tell you, I would never go against an Alex Ovechkin team. I mean, he's doing at his age. I mean, Ovechkin's not slowing down. That's what's really crazy about this. A lot of the league is talked about with Sidney Crosby and stuff, and we'll have a debate obviously at the end of who was the better player in their time, whether it's Crosby or Ovechkin. But what Ovechkin's doing still at 30, what is he, Hank? He's 38? 37. I mean, it looks like in some ways he hasn't missed a beat. And I tell you, I really think that the Capitals can go in there and upset Florida.
But before we move on from the hockey, just want to throw this out there. Game on Empty Bench are going to come together again on Monday for a special Game 4 live stream, live reaction to Game 4 in the series. Obviously, it'll still be in Pittsburgh. One of those teams will be up 2-1. We'll find out which tonight during Game 3.
But this is going to be a full walkthrough game. It's essentially watching the game, and Johnny and Hank will be there. Nick Federo will be there. We're venturing one more person as a guest, actually, hopefully, and who is a big Ranger fan.
Let's just hope we don't have like a carbon copy of Game 1 where it goes 3 overtime. Until almost midnight. You thought the NFL draft live stream was something. I mean, you haven't seen nothing yet.
Well, the NFL draft live stream was actually going at a pretty good pace, and then they decided to stretch out those last 4 or 5 picks.
No, then you had all the trades. But long story short, just so everyone knows, we're going to come on a little bit before. We'll do a pregame-ish. We're not going to do half an hour like they do on TV. But we'll probably come on 10 minutes before the game. We'll set it all up. We'll do everything. The guys will be there. They'll call the game. And
pivotal Game 4 in this series. And like you said, somebody's going to be up 2-1, and somebody's going to be desperate. So we'll have to see. I mean, we'll see where the Penguins' goaltending situation is. Now they're down to their third-string guys. We still know where Jerry is because he was originally supposed to be back. They were saying for Game 3, and he's not. So we'll see where we are there. I do think the Rangers will be up 2-1 going into Game 4, but, Stanley Cup playoffs, they're totally unpredictable as much as we try to predict them.
So make sure you're there Monday. What time is the game?
Game 4 is at 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
So probably like 10 after it'll start, so we can come on at 7 or a couple minutes beforehand and get you set up for it in case any of the breaking news about the series happens between now and then. And then, of course, full reaction to the first 4 games on episode 9 of Game On this Tuesday.
Yeah, so full watch along. It's our first watch along on the ETV network, and we're going to be doing this going forward, having fun with some games. Yeah. We'll do it as long as the Rangers are in. The more we'll do of these as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring one of my rally towels in for the watch along.
Yeah, I like it.
But if they go to the Stanley Cup, we might even do a few games during the Stanley Cup, depending on what the schedules are. As long as Hank is not at a game.
Oh, I'm gonna be I'm gonna probably be at least one of them for sure.
You'll be at the home games. Yeah.
Oh, sure. You guys know that damn well.
Yeah.
Been at every game, home game so far.
Well,
all right.
Not all of them the regular season, but like
but the playoff. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some NBA. Let's piss Nick off a little bit.
Oh, good.
Oh, here it is.
So, do we go with the fact that he had back surgery and now he's going to be out for 3 to 4 months? Or he's going to need 3 or 4 months to recover, or that Kyrie Irving thinks that he's a martyr for missing all those games as a result of not wanting to get the COVID vaccine?
I hate you. Get the out of here.
Okay.
He usually takes you out, Nick. So
no, I'm the one that usually says the obnoxious things.
Well, Nick, you're the Net fan. I'm curious your thoughts about all this.
So I found it weird the other day. So Ben Simmons goes in and gets a surgery, and then he's back in his car, and he's like giving the peace sign, and he's all good, and everything is all right. It's all good in happy land in Ben Simmons' head. And they lost the trade. I said it last week. They lost the trade. We're going to go. If I could play last week's clip, which I went epically bonkers on last week.
Viral, yep.
That I would get rid of Ben Simmons. That's what I would do right now. I would cut Ben Simmons for everything. I don't care if we take a loss on Ben Simmons at this point. It's a joke. And then we have to deal with the martyr on top of it.
Well, see, now, before I get to my thoughts about all this, here's what I want to know, because there's something to this that's missing. Who was it that leaked out that Ben Simmons could play in Game 4, and then it's 10 days afterwards that he finds out that his back's still flaring up and then he's going to need the back surgery. So did the Nets know that he was going to need that he had this back problem when they made the trade for him?
They knew he had the back injury. It was when he was still in Philly, he still had the back issues. It was clear as day that he had the injury.
So this team's a mess then, because they lost both. Let's be totally honest here.
That's an understatement of the century, Johnny.
Well, take it from me, who knows what a mess is like in basketball. But look at it this way: the Nets lost, in my opinion, they lost the James Harden trade when they got him, and now they've lost the James Harden trade when they got rid of him.
I wouldn't say they lost it at first, because again, like I explained to you before the show, that if you think about when James Harden was traded from Houston to Brooklyn, James Harden was a number 2 because he couldn't be a number 1. If you asked him to be a number 1, he couldn't be a number 1. KD is number 1, and Kyrie was the 3 in a sense, and that was their roles were subjected. And then once Kyrie basically said, "Fuck everybody, I'm not playing because I'm not getting a vaccine," that's when it blew up.
Yeah, but don't you think the valuable players that they traded in that deal could have helped them too? Like a Karis LeVert and a Jared Allen.
Nick, should I go back to what I've even said about Harden during the Unspoken podcast days? My very harsh take. One of the most, if not the most overrated player in the NBA.
Well, yeah, I could have told you that. I think he's not a
playoff. He's not a playoff player.
Yeah, but I could say that about LeBron James too. But who cares?
At least LeBron has the rings to show for it. What's Harden got?
Well, that's true. I'll give you that. James Harden can't lead a team. He can't lead a horse to water. What makes you think he can lead a team to a title?
Yeah,
James Harden is the leader in the clubhouse of going to clubs and partying. That's where his championship rings are at. Not on the court.
Yeah, just he goes out of nowhere. Just goes, I'm gonna, not playing this game, and I'm gonna go out to a club after the game.
He made more headlines in France, basically getting allegedly arrested for doing something in France than he did in the U.S.
Jeez.
Okay, that's where the guy's head is off somewhere in a foreign country, partying in a nightclub, not on a court playing basketball.
Meanwhile, Kyrie Irving's brain is as flat as he thinks the earth is.
Oh my god. This is just an absolute mess. I mean, between this, the COVID situation, which is right now the least of his things, and then how about taking himself out of the bubble?
And wait, the worst problem is this is what Kyrie's telling us.
RELAX.
That's what Kyrie's telling us right now. Relax. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. KD and I are going to come back. We're going to lead this team with management because he thinks that they're the leader, not management.
Well, yeah, that's where I feel bad for the Nets to
trust the process.
That's where I feel bad for Steve Nash, because how any coach would survive trying to, piecemeal a different lineup every game because, one of your players can't play 90% of the home games. And then, one of your other stars needs to take a day off. And then you have another star who's hurt a lot of the time. That's why the Nets, I think, are going to be the last so-called super team in the NBA because it just doesn't work anymore. Every team that's in the playoffs right now is not technically a quote-unquote super team.
Well, I think that there's 1-2 combos. That's really where the league is right now. If you have a 1A and a 1B, that's where your team leads. And then you have a bunch of guys, role players that fit around the 1A and the 1B, like Tom said.
I think that's what it is. It's the emphasis on role players. Because if you think about it, if we're bringing up LeBron, think about that big three: LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Each technically had a role. And then that second championship, they brought in. Didn't they bring in Ray Allen with his 3-point shots?
I wouldn't consider Ray Allen a big three. I would consider him more of a role.
I know, but he would. No, I'm saying as a role player, they used him in his role.
Because
Udonis Haslem, yep, absolutely.
Ray Allen was more your perimeter guy to spread the.
That was actually a super team done correctly because you still had pivotal role players.
Well, then you had other guys. You had Rashard Lewis. You had Mike Miller. You had a bunch of guys that fit that roster. Udonis Haslem, which Johnny just said, who's still in the league somehow, 15 or 16 years in. But you had guys. I can even go further back to when it really wasn't a big three, but when you had Shaq and D Wade and Alonzo Mourning, that was really your original big three. It wasn't your traditional big three because those were two big men and you had one point guard.
But I mean, look at the Knicks. Look at the Knicks and what was constantly the problem. What was constantly the problem with them? The fact that they only looked at stars and points. They never looked at a scheme. They never looked at where players actually fit appropriately. Yeah. They de-emphasized roles and they paid for it.
Yeah, that's I take it from me as a Knicks fan. That's part of it. Yep.
The one thing I will say now is the Nets better not give that big contract to Kyrie. He's up for $250 million contract.
Yeah.
The Nets better run away and hide.
Well, I had said in the one of my ETB sports minutes is that I think the Nets need to focus more on putting a team together instead of putting stars.
They're not going to. Unfortunately, if you look at the Knicks and you look at the Nets, they're all about the stars. That's what drives the jersey sales. That's what drives the ticket sales. It doesn't matter what sport. You could say it for the NHL. You could say it for MLB. You could say it for the NBA. Even though they're competing, they need names to sell, to put butts in seats, as Nick would say.
But you know what though, and I'll get Hank in this on too. I'll bring this back to the Rangers for just one second. If you do you can do a rebuild in New York and do it, and as long as you're doing it right and successfully, and even be forthcoming like the Rangers were last year, then you know what? Then it can work. See, the Knicks are finally starting to rebuild, and I believe they are doing it the right way. It's going to take a couple of years. The Rangers were forthcoming last season. They said they were going to have to rebuild and stuff, and look where they are right now. They are actually ahead of schedule, and actually was good for a few years ago.
Sorry, Johnny, that was in 2018 was when they wrote the letter.
A few years back. I'm sorry, but you get my point though. Is that they were forthcoming about it,
right? No, but actually, Johnny, you're referring to like when they got rid of Davidson Company and the fans kind of wanted to start a riot. I think I was one of those, and I regret it because they have actually benefited from what they did in this offseason.
Yeah, the Rangers are one of the most consistent teams in hockey in the last almost 20 years. I mean, if you take out the last 2 years or so, they're one of the more consistent teams.
I would say really since the lockout ended.
That's what I'm saying. Since 2004, 2005, I mean, if you take out the last two or three rebuilding years, they've been in the playoffs pretty much every year, except for 1 year when they got eliminated on the last day of the season.
Right.
Fucking Ole Jokinen.
Right, but
yesterday.
Let's just remember something. Like New York is all about, like I said, money, ratings, and sales. That's all they care. They don't care if their fans win. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't.
All right. Let's go to the other side of the United States. Let's talk about Golden State. Let's talk about Draymond Green and his actions during this Warriors-Grizzlies series. Actually, kind of similar to what Kyrie did a couple of weeks ago. We're flipping off of the fans. In fact, Draymond giving the double bird.
I mean,
Draymond's not a martyr.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's gonna say, "I'm a martyr. I was poorly mistreated." I mean, so basically what happens is they're losing. I think he gets ejected, actually.
Yeah, he does.
I think that was the nut punch, if I'm not mistaken. And so basically he goes off court. The fans are booing. They're in Memphis. And basically goes, F you, and flips two birds. Not just one, but two. And he gets ejected. He goes off court. He gets fined $50K. And I keep saying to myself, wait a minute. He got fined $50K. But or what was it?
He got fined 25.
I mean, he got fined 25K. Kyrie got fined 50, but Draymond got fined 25.
Yeah, that wasn't right. As much as I'm not a fan of Kyrie, Draymond should have gotten 50. And Draymond even bragged afterwards. Oh, what does $25,000 mean?
When I make $25 million. By the way, the NBA should go back and just be like, I'm fining you like a few million and just make it hurt. But the NBA actually has rules because if you remember from some of the situations, the most that they could fine is $5 million. I didn't even know you could put a maximum on a fine.
That's what you get when you have a good players association.
Yeah.
But this whole situation led to something else as well, and I put it down there, Tom, on a banner as well. So Chris Russo, who's on First Take on Wednesdays,
Mad Dog for those of you,
Mad Dog on
New York. Yeah.
If you ever listen to FAN or you listen to Mad Dog Radio and Sirius now, you definitely know who he is. And so he's on debating against JJ Redick about how polarizing Draymond Green is. And basically, Chris is saying, I'm tired of all the polarization, play the game, stop with all the drama. And JJ basically took it to a point where he was basically saying, Chris was saying, shut up and dribble. And saying it was like the Fox News crowd and all this stuff. And I'm like, JJ, come on, man. Like you're going to tell us that Draymond is not over the top and is not overly polarizing? Seriously? Like what? Help me out here, because Can you defend Draymond? I can't.
No.
Uh,
What do you think, Johnny?
No, it's hard to defend. I mean, unless you want to make this a Draymond versus Kyrie situation, but
I mean, were Russo's comments like trending towards what Reddick was saying? Maybe you can make that argument. Was it full out? Probably not. But
He never said those words.
But I mean, Draymond. I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of Draymond. I'll say it right now. I'm not a fan of his actions.
And by the way, Johnny,
I also don't think, honestly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think Draymond has the output and production to put up with, you know, some of the antics.
But Johnny made a good point. Like when we were listening back to the audio before the show, I said to Johnny, what the podcast argument that JJ makes, that Draymond is a big time figure and he's got a podcast and everyone wants to listen to him. Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? That's such a minuscule part of the argument. Right?
Yeah. You know what? That part of the argument, though, is so 2022. That's probably why he was bringing it up.
So because
I don't think it's necessary to talk about that in regards to the conversation you were having.
But I'm saying, so what? He has a podcast. He's got a big following.
The Turner Sports deal is the bigger thing. Let's be honest.
And you know what's ironic about this whole conversation? Before he signed the deal with Turner, he reportedly was offered a deal to be on First Take.
Yeah.
I don't get this. And by the way, hey, JJ, how about you actually go out and win a championship before you retire? Right now, you have 0.
Ow.
Your career was a 0, and your media career is a 0.
Oh, I don't want to go that far, Nick.
Well, as he's doing color commentary for Game 3 last night in Philadelphia.
They put him on First Take because that's a polarizing show. It's not because they're good at media.
But Nick, you're right. Nick, you're right, though. I mean, that goes back to like, and we could do a whole media show on this. When they bring Russo on for Wednesdays, they do that because they're trying to, make it a little polarizing and make it debatable and stuff.
And
because you have Stephen A. and nothing else on that show now.
Well, when they went to rotating hosts after Max Kellerman was eaten alive and thrown off that show. But Chris has actually driven ratings to that show. That's why he's on Wednesdays, because he's actually brought ratings. What does JJ bring to the table? He's a former NBA player. That's it. He won nothing. 0.
All right, one last story here. Got UFC 274 tonight, which I quickly have to get ready for. But card has basically taken a little bit of a shuffle now. For the first time ever, we've seen a UFC fighter lose his title on the scale. Now, we've seen challengers basically miss weight and turn title fights into non-title fights, but we've never seen anything like this in which the champion actually comes in overweight. So lightweight, for those of you who don't know, don't follow UFC or MMA, is 155. Charles Oliveira weighed in at 155.5. Now, for non-title fights, you are allowed to, like if it's a non-title fight, you're allowed to go up to 156. But when it's a title fight, you have to nail it on the dot. And he was unable to do that. Now, very controversially, we actually have had a number of fighters from the UFC 274 card come out and say, my weight on the stage scale, the official scale, was not what it was backstage. Backstage, they have, when they're cutting weight at the fighter hotels, they have scales all around for fighters to check their weights and such. And a number of fighters are saying that basically, it wasn't a match when they went to the official scale. And actually, Tommy Toehold, who basically is a figure with MMA on Point, that channel, actually was one of the original faces when it came to the UFC and gambling, noted that apparently 17 fighters on this card have basically came in, within that half-pound allowance.
Wow.
So he's saying at that point, something's up here.
So if that's the case, then why don't they should just let him fight tonight? And
because the UFC ultimately, they can do some stuff that they want, but ultimately they still have to act within the commission's power, and the
regulations.
The commission says they're half a pound. I think you're seeing that. I think you are seeing that a little bit because Oliveira. They said if Oliveira wins tonight, his next fight will be a title fight. He'll still be allowed to fight for the title afterwards. Now, if Gaethje wins, he's champ outright. He made weight and such. Actually, we did see something kind of in the similar path. Nick, Morrison, you might remember from the Unspoken podcast days, that card when Khabib was supposed to fight, and actually Khabib was supposed to fight Ferguson. You had all that whole shake-up, which was actually further shaken up when McGregor invaded the Barclays Center and threw that hand alley through the window.
Oh, God. That was my favorite moment of all time.
Of course, when you saw actually a Long Island boy, an ally Kinsev, get moved up from a non-title fight into a title fight after he had already weighed in at 155.5, the commission said, you're not allowed to, win the title. And the UFC actually, and Dana actually said, screw you, because of events out of our control. He, he couldn't weigh in again because he had already weighed for his original fight. You know what? We're going to recognize him as champ. Screw you, commission.
Well, yeah, because that's like any sport. Like, if you want your guy who's making you money, you're going to break the rules for them. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, so quite an interesting situation, but I mean, the fight is still on. It's just, we've never seen anything like that. I had to bring that up because that's something history making.
I mean, talk about losing your shirt, and I'm not talking about gambling.
If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-RIDLEY.
I was going to say, if you're looking to gamble, use discount code Ridley at DraftKings.
Oh, that's the joke. That's the joke.
By the way, disclaimer, that's not real.
Yeah,
Not
really.
Just because people will be dumb enough to believe that's real. It's not real.
Just remember something, guys. Ridley gets a year, and what's Watson going to get? Probably 6 games or something like that.
And he'll get $230 million guaranteed on top of it.
Better get more than Hopkins.
Well,
if he gets the same amount as Hopkins, and I mean everybody's.
That's a statement.
That is.
Think about it. If he gets the same amount or less than Hopkins, then
what's the NFL saying? It's the statement. It's not a good statement.
Yeah. Well, sometimes optics with the NFL, they don't realize that until it's too late. But yeah,
the NFL has optics. No.
Well, no, I was going to say NFL stands for no fucking logic, but.
All right, let me throw in another shout out to Knack.
Yeah.
Thank you again to them for always sponsoring. That's not just us on Empty the Bench, but Johnny and Hank too on Game On and the rest of the shows here on the Empty the Bench podcast network.
Yeah.
You're gonna say something, Nick?
No, I was just saying. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Make sure to follow us all across social media. Watching on Twitter, make sure to like and retweet the episode. Make sure to give us a follow at ETB Sports. Make sure to like the Facebook page also at ETB Sports. Like and share the episode being broadcast there. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get all the notifications for Empty the Bench, for Game On, Beyond the Bench, and the rest of the content we've got coming up here on the Empty the Bench podcast network. Again, throw the plug in one more time. Actually, I'll throw a couple of plugs.
Yeah.
Game On with Johnny and Hank every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Another one of the sports shows you got here on the Empty Bench Network. Also, I'll throw in Hank's show for our friends over at Review and Preview, Hitting for the Cycle, Thursdays at 7.
Yeah, great show. Go check that out.
Yeah.
And again, also make sure Monday, War and Fish will be available, but Monday, Game 4, game time for Rangers Penguins is 7 o'clock, so we'll be like 6:50, 6:55, I'd say, for pregame. And then and then Game On and Empty Bench will come together again for live reactions, live broadcasting.
Full game.
Full game. Make sure you come and tune in and hang out.
If you're looking for an alternate broadcast that doesn't involve having the broadcasters interrupt every 5 seconds.
That's right.
It's our own Manning cast, but nobody is named Manning.
Did you? Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. I have to bring this up quickly. Did you see that Joe Buck is now going to be doing an alternate Manning cast for golf?
I did see that. I'm like, and what do we? I can't even say Woods cast. I don't know what you would call it. PGA cast?
Pass the buck.
I was going to say the Buck cast.
The buck stops here with Joe.
But I did see, and I love how Buck came out on Twitter and he's like, what? Question marks? Like he's acting like he doesn't know.
On par with Joe Buck.
That works.
Everything's.
We'll show you how it's done on Tuesday, on Monday night.
Everything's bigger in Texas with Joe Buck.
All right. Go follow us at all our social medias as well. You've seen them scrolling on the bottom throughout the show. Again, thank you to Knack, and that's going to do it. So for Hank and Johnny, thank you guys again for coming on. Again, check out Game On every Tuesday here on the network. For Hank, for Johnny, for Nick, and for the absent Nick Padera, I'm Tom Albano. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.